everybody, Ellie here. Today's video is brought to you by Star Trek Fleet Command, but more on that in a bit.
Sometimes it's fun to play in other worlds and other spaces. Star Trek has often visited a different version of the reality we know just to show the audience what a difference a decision can make. To be fair, much like Homer Simpson's toast trip through the universe, some of these alternate realities have looked pretty good. Humanity is prospering, the world is thriving, happy days. And then, the rest. Whether there are galactic alliances out to get us, or the twist of fate went a little too dark from time to time, there are those other worlds that seek to remind us how good we've got it in the 24th century, even if it's a little hard to see that sometimes. Of them all, here are 10 of the worst. However, depending of course on where you're living, because Bajor sure as heck didn't have a good 24th century, let's move on. I'm Sean Ferry for TrekCulture, and here are the 10 worst alternate realities we've seen so far. Number 10, the Mirror Universe. Kicking things off with the obvious entry, the so-called Mirror Universe was first introduced to audiences in the original series episode Mirror Mirror. Though humanity was doing comparatively okay at the time, it was by brutally subjugating other races. The end was inevitable, even if it took some former emperors hundreds of years to discover it. With Spock's attempt to swing the Empire over to the path of peace, the rest of the quadrant swooped in for the kill. The Klingons, Cardassian and Bajorans formed a deadly alliance, swiftly overpowering the Terran Empire. This left the Alpha and presumably Beta quadrants in a state of terror for over 100 years, reducing the Terran race to a mere gang in space. The visits to this awful place were highlighted, with the odd Prime-led rebellion here and there, but overall, I think we'll pass on any extended stays. Number 9. The Confederation of Earth. A safe galaxy is a human galaxy. Adam Sung may have felt justified in the 21st century shouting this from the rooftops, but by the late 24th century, this took on a whole new level of butchery. When Q sent Admiral Picard, Seven of Nine, Raffi, Rios, Jurati and Elnor over to this altered version of the universe, things were all dark as pitch. The Confederation of Earth ruled with an iron fist, while General Picard had a reputation that made Gul Dukat seem kindly and meek. They had destroyed the Borg. He had personally decapitated Sarek. General Martok's skull adorned his study. The CSS World Razor looked about as sleek as a panzer tank. This was not the world as it should have been. There, but for the grace of an earlier Picard, the future seemed grim and bleak. Temporal shenanigans, some weird shit in the Stargazer, and a couple of familiar faces later, the world was saved. Like many other trips through the Looking Glass, this one was a scary take on what might have been.
Well, that was a year of hell. Well, thankfully I've got Star Trek Fleet Command. Star Trek Fleet Command is the ultimate strategy game where you can build entire fleets, you can forge alliances and explore the galaxy like never before. Use our link in the description or scan the QR code and you can download the game for free on your PC. Or mobile. Fleet Command is celebrating Star Trek Voyager's 30th anniversary with Year of Hell Part 2. The story picks up with Seven of Nine after Voyager returns to the Alpha Quadrant, but before she becomes one of the Fenris Rangers. And there's a new ship. The USS Relativity is going to help you fight the Krenim. There's a battle pass which is of course full of Voyager goodies. You're going to unlock epic characters like Anorax and Seska and rare characters like Lon Suitor. But wait, there's more. No relation. Redeem code Voyager30 and you can unlock Neelix. Yeah, I wouldn't mash any codes together or you could end up with a Tuvix. Use the link in the description or scan the QR code to download the game for free. Also, Fleet Command rewards consistency, so get a 7-day login streak and you can unlock the epic Romulan Captain Nero for free.
Number 8. Twilight of Starfleet. Starfleet's early days weren't a purely peaceful jaunt out into the unknown. While the excitement of space travel was etched into the bulkheads of Enterprise, there were dangers waiting for the NX-01 that none from their time could see. The sphere builders needed to take some pieces off the temporal playing field, so they manipulated the Xindi into staging a preemptive attack on Earth. With 7 million lives lost, Starfleet cancelled all exploration missions and focused its resources on tracking the Xindi down. The stakes were devastatingly high. While that first attack was but a taste of what could come, one potential reality saw Earth destroyed, with the survivors limping toward, though they didn't know it, a planet that would soon explode into so much space dust. Dr. Phlox managed to change the past, avoiding this dark twist of fate, but once again the audience were treated to innocent bodies blasting out into space. Number 7. a devastating vision of the not-so-distant future. Visionary sees Miles O'Brien take on his annual suffering bout, this time bearing witness to the only on-screen destruction of Deep Space Nine itself. As spectacular a shot as it wasn't a good time to be a Niner. Radiation is a funny thing. It can explain all manner of scientific hoo-ha in Star Trek. Here it causes O'Brien to jump forward in time by 5 hours, several times, thus giving him a little glimpse at what might be. This saves his life on 2 occasions, both times from Klingons, until it's the Romulans who really ruin his day. He arrives in time to see the station explode before effectively sacrificing himself so that his future self can go back in time and warn the past about the present. Time travel! It may only have been the difference of a few hours, but surely any reality that sees DS9 disappear in a ball of flame is an awful, awful reality. Number 6. We won't go back. The Borg are everywhere. Wolf 359 is one of the pivotal moments in Star Trek's long history. The survivors from the battle remain deeply scarred for years to come, with Ben Sisko and Liam Shaw serving as stark examples of this fact. In the Prime universe, the Borg were defeated and Starfleet won the day, eventually. There are those universes where Jean-Luc Picard was a little less lucky than his Prime counterpart. In parallels, Worf jumps to a reality where Starfleet won, but Picard was lost. This, however, pales in comparison to the universe that is introduced toward the episode's climax. Once hundreds of Enterprise Ds begin appearing at the same point in time and space, one hails from a universe where the Borg not only won, but proceeded to destroy Starfleet, assimilating the vast majority of the quadrant. A traumatized and desperate Riker pleaded not to be sent back, going so far as to fire on the attempt to fix his break in reality. In what may have been a mercy, his Enterprise is destroyed by another, effectively freeing him from the Borg once and for all. Number 5. Voyager's Year of Hell. Star Trek often introduces us to different universes, though the visits are usually quite short. Star Trek Discovery currently holds the record for the amount of time spent in an alternate reality, with a chunk of its debut season spent tallying with Terrans. The proposal for Star Trek Voyager's 4th season would have seen it under constant attack from the Krenim Imperium, delivering a true year of hell for the crew. This was relegated down to 2 episodes, though still remains among the show's strongest outings. There is simply no relief for Janeway and the crew once they enter Krenim territory. Anarax's temporal weapon creates a universe that sees many of the crew either dead or imprisoned, bulkheads and decks exploding, and fires raging untamed. If there were any doubt before this, Janeway proves to be the hardiest captain in the fleet, effectively holding Voyager together with determination alone. Though the reset button is mildly frustrating from an audience perspective, the alternative would be a longer stay in this horrid reality, something that is probably best left in the suggestion box. Number 4. Solum's total destruction. When we are first introduced to the Diviner, and through him the Vauna Cat, the audience is shown a seemingly evil man, bent on the destruction of Starfleet. His search for the protostar is single-mindedly due to his need for the living construct, that terrible weapon that will wipe out the fleet. One must, however, consider where this man has come from. In his reality, Starfleet was inadvertently responsible for the civil war that tore Solum apart. Their confidence in their mission of peace failed to account for a world that simply wasn't ready for it, despite the Prime Directive warning against exactly such a thing. Solum is shown to be a beautiful, thriving world before the fall, and becomes a derelict, decaying husk afterwards. This is the end of a world, but it's also the end of a civilization. So can one truly blame the Diviner, or even Essentia, for their plans? To a point? Thankfully, this reality is averted, even if the cost almost consumed the universe. Number 3. A blast from the past. Having all of those extra senses was a blessing and a curse for Guinan in yesterday's Enterprise, aware as she was of the changes in the timeline, though not quite able to pinpoint exactly where and when. A walking ghost in the form of Tasha Yar helped her to see that nothing was quite as it should be. The Klingon Empire had engaged in a bloody civil war with Starfleet for decades, reducing the strength of the fleet by hundreds of ships. In the Prime universe, this had been averted by the heroic actions of the Enterprise C, sacrificing itself while attempting to save the Klingon colony of Narendra III from Romulans. When the ship vanished through a temporal fissure, the Klingons took this as cowardice, thus deepening their hatred for the Federation. As Captain Picard confessed to Captain Garrett in the altered 2366, defeat was inevitable, with surrender seemingly their only option. With scant options open to them, the crew of the Enterprise C voted to return to the past, retaking its place in history and saving countless lives from a devastating war. If there were one positive thing to come from this horror, it was the heroic and meaningful death of Lieutenant Tasha Yar, eventually. Number 2. A future with no Federation. The temporal wars were among the most devastating events that have yet to be truly explored in Star Trek. They were introduced in Enterprise, though their effects were still felt in Discovery's far future. One being linking both eras was Agent Daniels. The temporal agent was tasked with protecting Captain Archer, among other things. To this end, he plucked the captain from the timeline in Shockwave Part 1, though instantly regretted this choice. Removing Archer from historical events rewrote history, erasing the Federation from existence. In Daniels' time, what had once been a beautiful city was reduced to rubble, all historical data was replaced with paper books, and life had ceased to exist. Though both men managed to undo this cataclysm, it served to highlight the need for the Federation in the history of the galaxy, not least, it seemed, against the Romulan Star Empire. Number 1. Space vampires and Nazis. The temporal wars strike again, this time using that time-honoured collection of evil bastards, the Nazis. Vosk and his fellow Nakul slip back to Earth of the 1940s, ally themselves with the Nazis, and lead a takeover of the planet. Their aid allows the Nazis to go full man in the high tower on the world, leading to a dystopian reality wherein all personal liberties were suspended and life became hell. The arrival of Enterprise and its crew, this time with a little help from Silic, leads to the downfall of Vosk, the defeat of the Nazis, and the conclusion, finally, of the temporal wars. They had been a long time in the making, and even longer in terms of their impact, but the wars did serve as a frighteningly timely reminder of a simple fact. Putting a Nazi in the White House is a bad idea, actually. Stormfront Part 2 ended the temporal war arc for Star Trek Enterprise, though it wouldn't be the last time the audience got to see a certain agent named Daniels. That's everything for our list today, folks. Thank you so much for watching along. We hope you enjoyed it. You have been wonderful, you have been awesome, and hopefully we will all end up together in the right, happy timeline, shall we? Thanks very much, folks. Bye.